This video is about the large dataset, which consists of weather data samples provided by the Met Office. So first thing, let's go through some definitions. So variables or data associated with numerical observations are called quantitative variables or quantitative data. For example, it might be shoe size, age, number of siblings, so on. Variables or data associated with non-numerical observations are called qualitative data or qualitative variables. So e.g. might be hair color, gender, favorite, food, so on. Note. So what you need to know is the key distinction between the two is whether it makes sense to order the different values that the variable can take. So key distinction is whether it makes sense to order the different values that the variable can take. So for example, if we look at hair color, it doesn't make sense to order it because you can't say one is bigger than the other. Whereas shoe size 5 is bigger than size 1. So it makes sense to order it, so it's quantitative data. Some variables can be both. Some can be both. So for example, ratings, e.g. ratings, you can have terrible, poor, good, excellent, or you can have ratings going from 1 to 5. Or for example, the color of belt you are within karate, for example, can either be obviously the color in color order, like red, yellow, black, so on, or it can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in terms of progression. So you can make it either qualitative data or quantitative data. Some look quantitative, but are actually qualitative. For example, dialing codes, international dialing codes. Although they might be like 44 plus 44, it doesn't have any value, as in you can't order it. It doesn't make any sense ordering it, so it's actually qualitative data. Okay, some data is collected from students using the following questionnaire. What is your height? What is your favorite shape? How many siblings do you have? What tutor group are you in? How would you rate the performance of the Prime Minister? Decide which variables are qualitative and which ones are quantitative. So what is your height? You're going to give a numerical value which can be ordered, so I would say that's quantitative. Whereas the favorite shape is going to be qualitative. How many siblings do you have is quantitative. What tutor group are you in? Although these are numerical values, it doesn't make sense to order them because tutor 1 is not higher than tutor 8 or vice versa. So even though they're numerical values, it is actually qualitative. How would you rate the performance of the Prime Minister? So it's in words, so that means it's qualitative, but obviously if we wanted to change it to quantitative, we can rate it from 1 to 5, for example, and that would make it quantitative, and then we can calculate and make calculations from it. Okay, a variable that can take any value in a given range is a continuous variable. So for example, time goes on forever, distance can be measured to any degree, height, temperature. So these variables are continuous. A variable that can take only specific values in a given range is a discrete variable. So that might be, for example, shoe size, or it might be number of girls in family, because the number of girls in family are whole numbers. You can't have 2.5 girls, so it's discrete, so on. So these are the types of variables they can have. The next question, state whether each of the following quantitative variables is continuous or discrete. So shoe size is discrete because it takes certain values. You can't go to the shop and say I want a 4.23, for example. Length of a leaf is length, so we're measuring length, so that means it's continuous because you can take a range of values. Number of people on bus are whole numbers. If it takes only whole values, then it's straight away discrete. Weight of a sugar, again, that's continuous, can measure to different degrees. Time required to run 100 meters, again, anything to do with time is continuous. Lifetime in hours of torch batteries, even though it says hours, it's still time, isn't it? So it's going to be continuous. Shirt collar size is going to be discrete because you can only buy it in certain sizes, obviously. Okay, so now we come to the large data set. So the large data set will not be available for you in the exam. It's just something you need to have some general knowledge of. I'm going to go through the things that you need to remember about it. So the locations in the obviously locations of the places in the large data set is 5 UK weather stations. So it's Camborne, Herne, Heathrow, Leeming and Leuchars. What I can see is, what I try to remember is it starts from C. It sort of goes alphabetically. The only two that don't make sense is these two have swapped over if you think about it alphabetically. But otherwise the rest of them are in alphabetical order. So from south to north, it's sort of going in alphabetical order except for these two. The H ones, so just swapped over. So if a quick way to remember that, I think. And also 3 overseas stations, which are Beijing, Jacksonville in America, Beijing in Japan, and Perth in USA. Okay, so those are the locations. So the time period you need to remember is from May to October 1987, so 6 months there, and May to October 2015. Okay, and obviously May, June is end of spring. July to September is summer. October is autumn. But the only thing you need to realize is because Perth is in the southern hemisphere, it has the opposite seasons. So which means July to September is winter. Okay, so I don't know if I want to write it down. When it's summer here, it's winter here. And because most of this are from the summer months, then for Perth, it'll be the winter months. Okay, it does have some, obviously, information about the UK Great Storm and the hurricanes, just something to keep in mind. Okay, the variables that are recorded, it's good to know what variables are recorded, obviously. I would just say that the daily mean gust, just remember that it's measured in knots and the Beaufort scale. And Beaufort scale is discrete with 13 values which go from 0 to 12. Cloud covers are measured in octaves, so 0 to 8. So 8 of the sky covered by the cloud is discrete with scale of 9 values, 0 to 8. That's another thing to remember. And NA is reading is not available. So there are a lot of instances in the data where it says NA, which means reading is not available. So in those cases, you might have to clean your data, get rid of the NA, and then use the data. Or you might have to, obviously, you might not get a complete set of complete sample, which means obviously it's going to affect your the conclusion that you draw from it. Trace is rainfall is less than 0.05, and we normally what we do is we replace data with 0. So 0. So trace means 0. Okay, let's go through some questions. Describe the type of data represented by daily total rainfall. Now, daily total rainfall is obviously a measurement of height. So it's going to be continuous. This numerical is going to be quantitative data. Alison is investigating daily maximum gust. She wants to select a sample of size 5 from the first 20 days in Herne in June 1987. She uses the first 2 digits of the date as a sampling frame and generates the 5 random numbers between 1 and 20. State the type of sample selected by Alison. So this is a simple random sample because the one we're using a random number generator. C. Explain why Alison's process might not generate a sample of size 5. Because some data may be missing. So they might be labeled as NA in the large data set. Okay. Next question. Dominic is interested in seeing how the average monthly temperature changed over the summer months of 2015 in Jacksonville. He decides to take a sample of 2 days every month and average the temperatures before comparing them. Give one reason why taking 2 days a month might be a good sample size. Because you're saying 2 days a month because 2 days a month means you're taking every single month into account. Because the data will be from different months, therefore provides more accurate data. And why it might be a poor sample size. 2 out of 30 or 31 days is a very small sample size. So it's not enough to make a conclusion about that month at all. B. He chooses the first day of each month and the last day of each month. Give us a reason why this method of choosing days might not be representative. Now, if he's choosing the first day and the last day, then the last day of 1 month and the first day of the next month are consecutive days. Are consecutive days, therefore not random. It may be affected. They may be affected by weather patterns, because if they're consecutive days, there's a hurricane, for example, that lasts, or a storm that lasts for a few days, then that will affect both days. See, so just a better way they can choose his sample of days. Number days and use a simple random sample to generate random numbers to select corresponding days. The table shows the mean daily temperature at each of the 8 weather stations for August 2015. Give a geographical reason why the temperature in August might be lower in Perth than in Jacksonville. Perth is in the southern hemisphere. Therefore, it is winter in August. Jacksonville is in the northern hemisphere. Therefore, it is summer in August. Hence, it is hotter in Jacksonville compared to Perth. B. Comment on whether this data supports the conclusion that coastal locations experience lower average temperature than inland locations. So the lowest temperature are in Campen and Luches, which are coastal locations. So lowest temperature in the UK are coastal locations, i.e. Cambourne and Luches. If you look at Beijing, which is the highest, Beijing is inland. With the highest temperature. So there is some evidence. Therefore, there is some evidence to support this conclusion. The large dataset provides data for 184 consecutive days in 1987. Marie is investigating daily mean wind speeds in Cambourne in 1987. Describe how Marie could take the systematic sample of 30 days from the data for Cambourne in 1987. So Marie should select days at regular intervals. So systematic is the one with the regular intervals. From an ordered set. Where the days have been put into date order. So 184 divided by 30 is equal to 6.13, which is approximately 6. So use a random number generator to randomly select a number from 1 to 6 and then select every 6th day until 30 days have been selected. Part B, explain why Marie's sample would not necessarily give her 30 data points for investigation. So anytime that you can't get, obviously, all the data, that there might be missing values, obviously. In data, IE and A. Which is further north, Herne or Cambourne? So remember, it starts on CHHLL, so the furthest north will be Herne in this case. So remember CH, so Heathrow. So remember Heathrow and Herne swap over, so Herne, and then Heathrow, and then Leeming, and then Luches. So it's further north is up, so north is this way, so it is Herne. What scales are used for measuring wind speed? So remember there was 2, which was knots. and the Beaufort scale. Why can't we test the hypothesis? Is sunnier in the UK than in Perth? Because we have no sunshine data for overseas, so it's missing. Also, it's different times of the different seasons in the UK and Perth, so it might not be comparable. Find some discrete data. So discrete data is cloud cover because it's measured in from 0 to 8. Wind direction. Okay, find some categorical data, which is just qualitative data. It's wind cardinal direction, which might be NWW, something like that. What does trace means? There's not enough rainfall to measure. In other words, it was less than 0.05 millimeters. Okay, one last question. Data on the daily total rainfall in Beijing during 2015 is gathered from the large data set. The daily total rainfall in millimeters on the first of each month is listed below. State with the reason whether or not this sample is random. Not random, as first date was not selected using a random number generator. B. Suggest 2 alternative sampling methods and give one advantage and one disadvantage of each in this context. So you could have a systematic sampling, which means select first date using a random number generator from and then select the same date for each month, and then select the same date for each month. And the positive for this is every month is covered, is included in sample. So it's representative. A disadvantage might be that there might be patterns, weather patterns in data. You can have also a simple random sampling. So select 6 days using random number generator after labeling sampling frame. So you have to have a sampling frame for this one, and you need to do that. So the positive in this one would be it avoids patterns in data. Disadvantage is that, and obviously without wanting to, you might not include every month, because you might end up selecting all the dates from the same month. Therefore, not representative. Okay, C. State with reason whether the data is discrete or continuous. It is continuous. Rainfall can take any value. It is continuous. Okay, D. Calculate the mean of the 6 data values given above. So it's 9.0 plus 0.0 plus 1.0 plus 32.0 plus 4.1 plus 3.0 divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is equal to 8.1833, which is equal to 8.2, measured in millimeters, so 8.2 millimeters. E. Comment on the reliability of this value as an estimate for the mean daily total rainfall in Beijing during 2015. Is it unreliable? Because it does not include values from winter months. Because remember, it was summer months, May to September, May to October.